AEW is firing back at WWE, plus a new contract has been signed in AEW. We're going to talk about that one. And yes, a TNA star requested their release, and the request was granted. It's all coming up right here on the Ango Show. Welcome back to TAS, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, we go live Monday through Friday. We talk about everything that's happening in pro wrestling, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, everything. Guys, we're always uploading on this channel. We're always giving you guys the constant scoops. So if you want to be in the loop, you got to click subscribe. Let's kick things off with TNA. Jay Vidal has been released by the company just a few days prior to Bound for Glory. It's come out thanks to Fightful Select that Jay has requested their release. He requested his release from the company and was granted his release from the company. Now, for some of you, you might not watch TNA, you might not understand or may not know who Jay Vidal is, but it is important to talk about this because TNA is a company where I love TNA, right? And I love what TNA does on a weekly basis. I think Anthem has done a really good job with this company. However, Jay Vidal was largely on screen with Giselle Shaw, which, as you guys know, Giselle Shaw months ago or a while ago had basically requested the release and was granted the release. Now, in today's situation, you got Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, which is founded by Scott D'Amore. He's come back and brought in Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, and they just had a great weekend. Giselle Shaw competed there, had an amazing match with Athena. Giselle Shaw is obviously in a relationship with Scott D'Amore, and Jay Vidal's presence on TNA television was largely with Savannah Evans and Giselle Shaw. So it's not like TNA really had much to do with Jay Vidal afterwards. Now, the real question here is what happens next, right? And this is the big thing. It's not even just this particular individual, right? Like when we look at TNA's roster, it's going to be changing. There's going to be contracts coming up. There's going to be talents who aren't utilized. We were just talking the other day about Jonathan Gresham. Fantastic talent, but for some reason, the certain talent can't appear to be in prominent storylines on TNA television. And what I think we're going to end up seeing is TNA completely restructuring the way that they have their talent listed and their roster. I think you're going to see a couple names get locked into long-term contracts, and then I think you're going to see a lot more people go into per appearance. Now, that's just me speculating, but I think based on what we've seen with WWE and AEW, I think TNA is going to be a little bit harder to compete with some of these other companies, and you're going to see them really try to lock in a couple people long term. That way you can tell that they are part of the TNA brand, and then you're going to have other individuals show up and they'll be able to be featured and whatnot, which we've kind of already seen with other talents. AEW has signed Sting to a multi-year deal, but Sting isn't wrestling, guys. So what is this? Sting was talking about this in an interview with the David Difference, and he basically confirmed that he signed a multi-year deal with AEW. He says it's obviously not to wrestle anymore, but it's like a licensing deal, a Legends deal, if you want to call it that. So I will do appearances with them on and off, depending on what they want and all. This is really cool, man. I'm happy. Why wouldn't I be happy about this? I think for AEW, it's weird because it's technically, we don't know if Tony Khan is calling it a Legends contract, right? In WWE, they have the same thing. They used to call it a Legends contract, a Legends deal. Now they're calling them nostalgia contracts. Sting is really the first legend for AEW. AEW's only been around for 5 years. So for AEW, it is a little bit harder to have a whole bunch of legends signed to these deals. Sting being on a deal with AEW means that he'll be part of the AEW family for a very, very long time. How does that work? Is Sting still part of a Legends deal with WWE? I don't know. I don't even mean to laugh, but this is where it kind of gets funny because, WWE and Sting, they obviously don't work together anymore. But because of his experience with WCW, and obviously he was in WWE, I have to wonder if WWE would also be able to sign him to a Legends deal as well, meaning both companies can monetize. I'm going to assume that AEW probably wouldn't allow that. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to say. I think it's a good thing for Sting, though. Sting did a lot for AEW. He was very, very, very helpful to AEW. He will constantly be helpful to AEW. I think AEW having that association with Sting in the long haul, especially when it comes to their tape library, I think that's going to be a very, very big deal as well. So ultimately, I do look at this as positive news. The real question here is, how will AEW disperse these new contracts as time goes on, right? Like, I think that's a big question. I think that's a good question to ask, because in WWE, it's become part of the system, right? Like, legends signing nostalgia contracts all the time. It happens all the time. Triple H is doing it now more than ever. In AEW, it doesn't really seem like there's going to be anybody else who could follow suit here. Ric Flair isn't on AEW television. Is it possible that maybe that's what they'll do with Ric Flair at some point? I don't know. It's a very interesting spot for Sting. So without knowing too many details, he's going to get paid. He's going to do some things for them here and there. AEW will be able to continue using his licensing, so action figures, video games, whatever it may be. But I think that is a good thing in general. And I think, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, there's going to be a lot more people who end up getting a Legends deal with AEW at some point. And that brings us to our final topic, Tony Khan and WWE. Man, this is an interesting one. Fightful Select has reported that those in AEW and New Japan think that it's likely that talent that work Forbidden Door or co-promoted AEW shows in the future would have to make an agreement to not immediately go to the WWE. Although it's not confirmed, it is likely under that when they're still signed with the promotion instead of a separate agreement. Now, for example, Stephanie Vicker is the one that keeps getting brought up because Stephanie Vicker worked in the last Forbidden Door, and now she's in the WWE. She didn't really give AEW or New Japan a chance or anything like that. Obviously, look, here's the thing. This is the reality. This is the truth. I think Tony Khan, and I've said this a long time ago, I keep saying it. I probably will never stop saying this. Tony Khan, I know you're doing your thing with New Japan. Tony Khan, I know you're doing your thing on AEW and on weekly television. You have been gracious. You have been kind. You have been good. You have given a lot of people money to show up on your TV show without contracting them. And you know what? At the end of the day, it hurts you when you do that. When you had AEW Dark, you gave people a place to work during the pandemic, and that was a very good thing. But a lot of those people ended up going to NXT 2.0, and now they are prominent figures on NXT television. What I'm suggesting is this: do not feature talent on your shows that are not contracted to your company. At all. At all. Because it does bite you in the ass, unfortunately. And also at the same time, too, if you like a talent to show up on a big pay-per-view, more than likely you like them enough to give them a guaranteed contract. Stephanie Vicker chose WWE over AEW without hesitation. That's what I always believed. It seemed like as soon as it was revealed that she was in talks with WWE, it was like that's what she wanted to do. And she made that pretty clear. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Ango Show.